I'm Hank Driscoll. I was the technical supervisor for Big Hero 6, and I'm currently the technical supervisor for Moana, which is our November 2016 film.
I'm Brent Burley. I'm a principal software engineer in the technology department, and my current thing is to lead the Hyperion development team.
I'm Adolph Lusinsky. I was the director of cinematography of lighting on Big Hero 6, and currently I'm doing the same role, director of cinematography lighting on Moana.
I'm the technical supervisor for the film. I come onto the film very, very early, part of the early leadership team when the directors are first coming up with the vision for the movie and starting to understand what movie we're going to make. So my job is to handle all the technical stuff, all the geeky things, which early on means all the innovation, all the R&D for the film, figuring out what they're asking for, working with the visual effects supervisor to do early testing to see how much can we do with tools and processes we already have, and then what's still left. What's the exciting things that the film needs that we may not be able to do at that moment. Working with the technology teams like Brent and his team, working on figuring out any new innovation we're going to pursue. Then as the film gets going, we start actually landing all these new pieces of technology, figuring out the pipeline, how it all flows together with a whole team of very talented people. Then as we get into shot production, I'm kind of chief firefighter. When the film is underway and we're just trying to get shots through, all of these new tools are sometimes fragile, sometimes new. And we have a team of dedicated developers on the show called technical directors. They work alongside the artists in each of the departments to help make sure things are flowing smoothly. So they identify issues, they resolve the issues themselves, or work with technology to resolve whatever issues we're having in the tools that we've developed.
So, like I said, I'm leading the Hyperion development team. There's day-to-day activities with that in terms of setting priorities, looking at production need, also trying to establish a vision for what things we're going to solve next and how we're going to do it, leading brainstorming sessions, occasionally coding. I don't get a lot of software development in anymore. But more broadly, just not Hyperion, but beyond Hyperion and before Hyperion, I like to look for things where we're struggling, things where we have a problem or a need in production, find some new way to solve it. And I'd like to find things that eliminate things that get in the artist's way. So things that are manual step, things that aren't a creative expression. And we're always trying to do more, to put more on the screen, and this creates challenges, and generally this interferes with this vision, so it makes things harder on the artist, more stuff to manage. So the things I'm interested in are things that allow us to scale and keep artists being artists. So Hyperion aligned with that vision, and so that's been a full-time job for a couple of years.
I work with the director and the production designer and try to come up with a vision for the film in the aspect of the lighting. And what that means is we look at the sequences and we'll try to break down the story and think about it. How do we visually want to tell that story? Is it going to be, is this a moody part of the movie? Is this a sad part of the movie? Is this going to be an exciting part of the movie, a celebration? What part of the story are we trying to tell? And so you can kind of think about it as we're painting the image with light. And for example, maybe we want something to be more dramatic. We could have the artist lower the light and get more dramatic shadows and create a more moody scene. And so I will work on that vision with the director and production designer. And then eventually we get into production, and literally I sit in a dark room with the production designer, and we look at every shot and give notes on every shot. And typically a movie will have 14 to 1,600 shots, and so we look at every one 2 or 3 times until we get the mood we want that fits in that kind of overall plan that we laid out with the director.
It was exciting for us for Big Hero 6 because it was a film that itself, the story was a celebration of technology. That was really important early on as the director was figuring out what movie we were making. we were all tired of technology being the bad guy in movies. So the movie itself was an idealized view of technology. The only time technology is bad in the movie is in the hands of a bad person. Technology itself is actually a very positive thing in the culture of San Fransokyo, in the characters that you see. They're all highly gifted technical people, the heroes in Big Hero 6. And so it was especially exciting for us to use it as an opportunity to talk about what we do technically, within the doors of Disney. All of our films are very innovative. All of our films were always pushing new ground. This was our most ambitious film, so it was exciting for us to present that. As far as particular things, we built the entire city of San Fransokyo, which was artistically and technically very challenging. We had a lot of work in how do we construct an entire city so that you can fly over the city for the big spectacle moments, and you can step down into those streets. We wanted it to be a rich urban environment. We wanted it to evoke both San Francisco and Tokyo. It had a lot of challenges in constructing that, then populating it with thousands and thousands of people, traffic, everything. We wanted to make it a living, breathing place you would want to visit. And so that was a big technical push on the film.
And we knew early on, it was going to be a superhero movie. We're going to have this city called San Fransokyo, which we're going to fly over, fly through, do car chases through, and it was going to be, and it was inspired by two cities people are really familiar with, San Francisco and Tokyo. So we really wanted this believable light that we would caricature for the story we were telling. But we'd want it to be convincing. And so with Hyperion and Global Illumination, it let us really have fun with the amount of lights. You think of Tokyo and all the signs, the car chases, all the street lights. And then once you fly over the city, you see it all at one time. All the buildings are lit up. All the street lights are lit up. And then on top of that, we've got the sun setting off to the side. And we wanted this all to be believable, and we didn't have, at the time, we didn't think we had a solution rendering-wise that we could actually accomplish this movie with and do all those things we wanted to do. And so with Hyperion, it really creatively kind of opened it up so we could do those things. And not only could we, but I think we ended up adding way more lights and complexity, sophistication to the image than we ever, I think, even thought we could when we first started doing this.
So the fundamental difference between this and the way other renderers work is that other renderers would trace a ray and it would bounce and it would bounce and bounce. And every time it hits something new, it's kind of in a random direction. And this hitting some random thing means it has to go get that data. And if it's in memory, that's still far away from the CPU where the work's done. So that can take a long time. And if it's not in memory, it has to go get it from disk, which is even worse, or across the network. So what we did was reorganize that problem, and we thought bigger about the whole thing. If we think we've got millions of rays, we trace 33 million rays at a time. If we take all these rays and generate them and then organize them, we sort them spatially and directionally, and then we find batches that are going in the same direction, and we trace those together. And so we're moving through the scene in a less random way. And this means that the first ray that hits something, there will be a wait, but the next ray, the data is already there. And we can now move just vastly more numbers of rays through this vast complex world. So to make a picture, we're tracing rays, which is simulating the bouncing of light, and we're doing it in an organized way. And this just gave us vast efficiencies and let us keep adding more and more stuff. So the first thing it did in terms of impact to the artist was it just handled more. So whereas before we might have to break things up, we might have to, instead of the whole city, we'd have to do this street or maybe just this block and render it, and then the other stuff would be in a separate render, and they would composite these together, and they would have to do it in sort of a way that would make them fit so the seams weren't visible. It's just more management, more stuff to manage. Also, this philosophy of simulating the bouncing of light more accurately meant that artists could just place a light in the scene and everything would be fully lit, like the way you might do in live action. Traditionally, what you do is you'd put a light in and it would light directly, but all the shadows would still be dark because it wouldn't continue to bounce. It would just be that first light hit. And so you would have to go in as an artist and add more fill lights, and you'd have to fill in the image. And it's not always easy to do that and have the result look consistent and believable. And we have talented artists, so they can do it. It just takes a lot more work. So with this, we got more complex, naturalistic lighting with less effort. And we made it a core philosophy of Hyperion to keep the usage simple, to keep that pure ideal. So we tried not to add controls that weren't enabling artistic expression. We don't want things, knobs that artists have to tune to get the sampling right or to avoid certain artifacts. We tried to take that burden onto the development team.
The one particular thing that was really, really hard to do was something like Baymax, which is this translucent surface, and which is a really hard thing to do in computers and make it convincing. And what we found with Hyperion in the simulation is that it actually took 10 bounces of the rays going around to accumulate enough light to make them really look luminous and convincing vinyl. And obviously Baymax is in a lot of shots in the movie, so it was really important for us. And what we would have to do before was we'd augment the lighting with a lot of extra fill lights, special lights that would let light leak through and fill the shadows. And with Hyperion, we got a really reasonable result right out the gate. We still might caricature the light. Maybe we wanted you to look more at his head, and so we'd put rims on the head or let more light illuminate through there. But if we didn't have Hyperion, it would have been a much bigger challenge to light something like Baymax.
Because it's one thing to put in lights to achieve a certain artistic view of the scene, but it's another to put in lights just because you can't achieve the base foundation of filling in your shadows without them.
Yeah, so I think the lighters, you get reasonable results right from the get-go, which gives you more time creatively to really push the creativity of the scene, push the different moods in the scene, and caricature the lighting to really help tell the story.
It certainly would have been more contained. We would have broken up shots a lot more. There's a great shot in the middle of First Flight where Baymax and Hero drop off the Golden Gate Bridge and then go sailing across the bay into the city proper. That one shot, they cover 2 miles, and you see a lot of the city flying by as you're doing that. We would have done a lot more with matte paintings. We would have done a lot more with contained camera views. We wouldn't have been able to be as alive in the city because we wouldn't have had the capacity to have 83,000 buildings in the scene at once. So we would have had to contain our cinematography from a camera standpoint, and we would have had to. It's one of the things that I realized late in it, and we've talked about it a lot. The animated films, certainly the ones we've done in the past, there's this view after the fact that there's a theatrical feel to it because of the constraints that you're operating under, where everything out past 100 feet is a psych. It's almost like you're on a sound stage and you're shooting all this stuff in a very contained way. And with Hyperion, just there weren't any boundaries. And so all of the things we had talked about earlier about spectacle and scope of a Marvel movie and all that just became maybe not effortless, but doable. And so we could open it up and do anything we wanted. We could put the camera where we wanted. We could move it wherever we wanted. It was very liberating. It really let us, achieve shots and looks we wouldn't have been able to do.